Move right on to 7.5, consideration of a public statement on Lake Pillsbury and the direction to staff to distribute to media outlets. And with that, I will give the floor to CAO Parker.
Yes, Patrick Sullivan is on the Zoom to answer any of your questions.
Morning, Board. So there are a few things I wanted to highlight about this proposed statement. First, that it is an initial draft. I wanted to make sure that this is the direction the board wants to take. I also wanted to thank Anita Grant because she was able to weigh in and help, provide some guidance and which direction to take this. So I definitely appreciate her help on that. There are a few structural and typographical changes I was going to recommend when this formatting was done. So I could ultimately put up a share screen if your board would find that helpful. But other than that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, please, if you want to go over those briefly, we can ensure that we make those changes when we move forward.
All right, just one moment. You see this?
Just one question, will we have to, if we make changes, we approved it as is on the other motion, will we have to make changes?
This is a different document.
Oh, okay.
This is for the press release. The other was the
all right,
letter.
it wasn't all right, thank you.
Can you make it a little bigger?
Yeah, if you can zoom in, there we go.
We're getting there.
Yeah, the Federal Regulatory Energy Commission, I think, is just backwards there.
All right. So I have that changed. There was this word is here. This paragraph, there should be a the and a the there. A was inserted here. Other than that, there was just a small formatting change here addressing a comma. The only substantive concern that was brought to my attention was actually by the Lake Pillsbury Alliance, and that has to do with some of the numbers in this paragraph here. What I would note they brought up is that later feasibility studies actually identified these numbers as being potentially higher. It's just hard to put a real estimate in place because they didn't fully investigate a lot of the environmental remediation that addresses the potential harm to Lake County, the sediment removal, and the vegetation management plans. They offer a host of different options. And when that later feasibility study came out, some of the options actually run a lot higher. Some of them run closer to 150 or $200 million. So this still represents a mid-range estimate, but with the information that was brought to our attention, there's the potential that the cost could actually be higher in the end. So I don't know if we want to add a line that addresses that or to revisit these numbers. I don't have anything particularly more concrete other than the range would be higher than what's expressed here.
Supervisor Sabatier?
So there was two comments that I had on this letter. One for this is these are preliminary numbers is maybe what we need to add to that. That kind of like when you're repairing a house, as you start tearing down the walls, you're going to find things wrong with the skeletal framework of the house that needs to be fixed too. So something along the lines that these are preliminary numbers and that the numbers could increase drastically depending on what is found. Because the studies have not been a complete CEQA study, including archaeological and biological. So my second comment is you do a good job in the first paragraph to provide an idea of the geography of how water runs down to Marin County. And just to put it out there for the public, in the city of Novato, they claim that they're getting 75% of their water from Sonoma County Water, who gets it directly from the Russian River. And we know that the Russian River is where the Eel River and the diversion of the water from the Eel River is dropped into the Russian River. So Lake Pillsbury is providing water that provides 75% of the water in the city of Novato, and there's even a water district further on south, more towards the San Rafael area, that also claims they're using 75% of their water from Sonoma County water, again, coming from the same origins. If we can get some of those percentages in there, just for them to know that water is coming in that direction, but if we can say 75% of your water, and I think your makes it powerful because it's going to be read by the person who actually uses that water. So just those were my comments to make it a little bit more impactful for people to truly understand where their water comes from, because we are quite the, I don't want to say the creator, but the origin of waters for a lot of different basins and a lot of different areas. I mean, our Clear Lake water goes down into Yolo County, all the way, if it's not used for agricultural purposes, into the Sacramento River. The Puta Creek goes all the way through and feeds into Berryessa. The Eel River comes through, creating Lake Mendocino with the Russian River and so on and so forth. So I think that I really want to stress that the amount of their water that is coming from these areas, that they're just happy to use water and without understanding exactly where it comes from.
I do have a question on that, and this question may be directed to County Council. Just in terms of citing those percentages that Supervisor Sabatier has raised, I have seen different percentages, and would it be appropriate to cite a percentage as long as I identify the source? Like I believe Supervisor Sabatier was citing figures from one of those district websites. Mm-hmm. As long as I identify the source, would it be appropriate to give that figure?
Yes, Ms. Grant.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would say you can give that figure, but I would also include some language that indicates that exact figures may vary, because you want the public to be completely informed, and if there's different information out there, you don't have to go into it, but you should alert the public that this is one source of information, but sources vary.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, any other comments from the board? No. Patrick, do you have anything else you'd like to cover?
No, I don't have anything further to add unless there are other questions.
All right, with that, we'll open it up to the public for any comment or discussion on this. So if you'd like to come up to the microphone and state your name for the record, you'll have 3 minutes. If there's anybody on Zoom, please unmute. All right. So we do have Carol Singh Queenie. If you can unmute, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Supervisor. The only comment I would have in that first paragraph is the water goes through the pipelines and it also supplies southern Mendocino County. It appears the focus is mostly on Sonoma and Marin, right, but it's an important water source for that whole Potter Valley to Hopland area as well.
All right. Thank you for that. Looks like we have, do you still have your hand up, Carol? Did you have more to say?
No, I thought I took it down. I'm sorry.
Okay, no worries. Thank you. Thank you for your comment and for your help. Next is Betsy Kahn. If you can unmute, start your 3 minutes.
I'm sorry, the unmute didn't work. Are you hearing me okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you very much. This comment might seem a little far afield, but I think it's extremely relevant. I believe that the county should undertake an update of the Clear Lake Integrated Watershed Management Plan and incorporate this issue, which has never been addressed in terms of the protection of origins of headwaters in the county of Lake, which Carol just described to you. That would be my recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Betsy. All right, any other comments before I bring it back to the board? Not hearing any? Bring it back to the board for either more discussion or action. Supervisor Sabatier?
Just to kind of respond to the comment from Betsy Kahn, we have been looking at the laws and regulations from the state of California when it comes to origins of water. So that is definitely something on our radar, and I appreciate the comment to look at embedding that into some of our other policies here locally. I did want to say that in the memo, it only states media outlets. It doesn't specify specifically which media outlets, and I just kind of wanted to see if Mr. Sullivan had a list of what those media outlets would be, because I believe that the idea, based on our conversations prior to this coming up, was that we were looking at out-of-county media outlets to make sure that people who do have some of our water that is being provided to them and understand the entire geography of where the water comes from and things like that, that they can understand it by putting it in their newspapers. So I'm wondering if you have a list of the media outlets.
So I did investigate this a bit, and we are going to have to expand our normal list. I did speak with Matthew Rothstein in our office, and some of the outlets that we mentioned, which would be media outlets in Sonoma, Marin, San Francisco, potentially the East Bay, aren't typically included in our media releases. So we are working towards developing that list, but our goal would be to get those major outlets in that area. If there are any specific outlets that you're thinking of, we can definitely incorporate those in.
Yeah, so I know that there's the Times Standard in Humboldt. There's obviously the Press Democrat in Sonoma County, the Ukiah Journal. I know that there's the Sonoma Valley Index Tribune, the Marin Independent, I believe is what it's called, for Marin County.
The Marin Independent Journal.
And I would love to, I believe it's called The Sun, in Sonoma County, or La Voz, I forget which one it's called, but I would love to see if we can get this translated as well, because the counties that we are trying to communicate with do have a large Spanish-speaking population too. And again, looking for consensus from the board rather than just getting you a list.
I'm fine with that.
And I can add a few of the other entities we were looking at was the Press Democrat, the San Francisco Chronicle, I believe it was the Marin Independent Journal that you were referencing, and potentially the Contra Costa Times, just some of the other agencies, because there is an interlink, or potential interlink between Marin and the East Bay. So those are some of the additional outlets that we were aware of that we were going to try to include.
That would be great.
All right. Any other comments? All right. We're ready for action then?
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the public statement with amendments as proposed on Lake Pillsbury and direction to staff to distribute to media outlets.
Second.
So I have a motion to end a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.